Have a precious morning, everyone, or afternoon. My name is Rania Tirot. So, my topic is about symbolic arguments. So, what is arguments? When we say arguments, this section, we consider analyzing arguments to determine whether they valid or invalid. So, ang arguments ay ginagamit natin para malaman kung ang isang statement ay valid or invalid. The symbolic arguments is also known as a formal arguments or logical arguments, are a way of representing or reasoning about propositions, statements, or claims using symbol or formal logic. And this is the idea of the great philosopher Aristotle. Yeah, about logic and reasoning process had the impact on mathematics and philosophy. Arguments and a valid argument. So, yung first statement ay tinatawag natin premises. And another statement called conclusion. So, kapag true yung conclusion, which means the argument is valid. Kapag mali, which means the argument is invalid. Standard forms of four valid arguments. So, meron tayong four kinds of valid arguments. So, hindi mo na kailangan gumamit ng truth table to determine the arguments or the statement is valid or invalid. For number one, we have direct reasoning. Direct reasoning ay may symbolic na ganito. P, then Q. So, the P, then Q is the first premises. Then, the second premises is the P. Direct reasoning ay may symbolic form na ganito. So, the first premise is P, then Q. The second premise is Q. Therefore, Q is the conclusion. So, para mabilis natin maintindihan, yung P, then Q is yung arrow, palitan nyo siya ng equal. So, P equals to Q is P. Therefore, the conclusion is Q. Ano kapag i-apply na natin siya into a statement form? So, we have this example. If Aristotle was human, then Aristotle was mortal. So, this is the first premises. So, the first premises is P is equals to Q. Aristotle was human is the second premise. So, the conclusion is, therefore, Aristotle is mortal. So, ganun lang kadali ang ating direct reasoning. So, now let's proceed to the second types of another valid argument called the contrapositive reasoning. Ang symbolic ng contrapositive reasoning ay P, then Q is the first premise. So, the second premise is not Q. So, the conclusion is not P. Itong contrapositive statement, which is the not Q, then not P. Ito ang basihan ng ating contrapositive reasoning sa symbolic na contrapositive statement. Para mabilis maintindihan, palitan natin yung arrow sign ng equal, kagaya ng ginawa natin sa number 1. So, magiging P is equals to Q, ang first premise natin. Then, the second premise is not Q. Then, the conclusion will be not P. So, paano naman kapag sa statement form natin siya gagamitin? So, meron tayong example dito. I am happy, H. H means the representation. Then, we will go out G. So, hahanapin natin yung conclusion. So, the first premise is H, then G. The second premise is not G. So, ang magiging conclusion natin is not H. The H is I am happy. So, papalitan lang natin siya ng I am not happy. Ang kalalabasan nga is, if I am happy, we will go out. We will not go out. I am not happy. So, the conclusion is not H. So, reminder, Hindi porket P and Q lang yung naririnig natin is P and Q na siya hanggang dulo. So, pwede natin siyang palitan ng iba't ibang letter, kagaya ng H, then G. Pwede tayong gumamit ng iba't ibang klase ng letter kasi yung Q pati P is example lang natin. Ang pangatlo ay transitive reasoning. So, ang transitive reasoning ay may symbolic na ganito. P, then Q, the first premise. And the second premise is Q, then R. And the conclusion is P, then R. So, papalitan pa din natin yun ng, yung arrow is papalitan pa din natin ng equal sign. So, magiging P equals Q equals R. Kung ang P ay equal to R, kung ang Q ay equal to R, meaning yung P is equal din sila. Kaya kung papalitan natin ng equal yung arrow is nagiging P then R. So, yung P then R ang ating conclusion. So, yung P natin is hypothesis, then yung R natin is conclusion. So, sa transitive reasoning, ang magiging conclusion nyo is based sa first and last symbol. Gagamitin na natin siya into a statement form. The statement is, if Mike is a CEO, C, then he will be able to afford to make a donation, D. If Mike can afford to make a donation, then he loves to ski. So the first premise is C, then D. The second premise is D, then S. So kagaya ng nasabi kanina, ang nagiging conclusion ng transitive reasoning is yung first and last symbol. Then ang conclusion niya is C, then S. Ang conclusion niya ay C, then S. Ang ating C is if Mike is a CEO, and yung ating S is he loves to ski. So the conclusion is, reminder lang din, sa transitive reasoning, hindi parating dalawang premise lang ang meron tayo. Last one is disjunctive reasoning. Ang symbolic form ng disjunctive reasoning is P or Q, the first premise, then not Q, the second premise, then the conclusion is P. Bakit naging ganito ang representation ng disjunctive reasoning and consider siya as a valid? So, mabilis natin maintindihan. Di ba ang or ay ginagamit kapag may choices ka? So, ganun din ang function niya kapag sa disjunctive reasoning. Makikita din sa symbolic form na P or Q, then Q, yung conclusion is P. Din sa symbolic form na P or Q, not Q, the second premise, then the conclusion is P. Kasi, hindi daw Q yung pinili niya. So, ang magiging conclusion natin is yung letter P. Paano naman natin siya gagamitin sa isang statement? So, for example, meron tayong I bought a car, C, or I bought a motorcycle, M. I did not buy a car, not C. So, ang first premise natin is magiging C or M. Then, the second premise is not C. So, ang magiging conclusion natin is hindi daw yung C. Then, magiging conclusion natin is M. So, ang magiging sagot is I bought a motorcycle. Hindi daw siya bumili ng car. Ang binili niya ay motorcycle. So, yun ang tinatawag nating disjunctive reasoning.